I'm going to make an observation. This may rub some people the wrong way, but so be it. But I think the vast majority of you in my audience will agree with me. There are certain campaigns on the Republican side that are absolutely vicious. Now, some are more vicious and in your face about it. Others are vicious and try to be operating under the radar. Like the Ron Paul campaign is absolutely vicious. Anybody who dares to question Paul and what he's been and what he said is smeared. Any of you who read Liberty and Tyranny, and 1.25 million of you did, if you liked it, may I suggest you go on Amazon and let them know? There's actually, I've been alerted to a campaign on there to take its almost 5-star rating down and to drag it down. You got to go in there and take a look. It's unbelievable what these people are up to. Amazon.com, Liberty and Tyranny. Just take a look at the comments. Just vicious and in-your-face vicious. Then there's the Romney campaign, who has all its surrogates, including some of my friends who are just vicious about this. Now, I look at Rove on TV. Rove pretends to be an analyst. Rove is not an analyst. Rove is a Mitt Romney cheerleader. And I really think if these guys are going to be on news shows and be called on for, giving their analyses, then there ought to be something other than their name or something of the sort that says a Romney supporter, or for that matter, a Gingrich supporter, a Santorum, whatever. My dear friend Ann Coulter has gone over the edge. She's putting out what are, in essence, Romney opposition research talking points. Why do we have to destroy Rick Santorum? Can't we just debate these issues? Why do we have to destroy Newt Gingrich? Can't we just debate these issues? For that matter, why do we have to destroy Rick Perry, who's a perfectly decent human being? Mark, what about you and Romney? Isn't it interesting? Excuse me, Ron Paul. Isn't it interesting? I discussed Ron Paul's position and his record, and the viciousness and vileness of the attacks and the anti-Semitic comments about me from that the call screener has to deal with and that are on all these websites. When I was questioning Gingrich's positions, I didn't get that from his people. When I was questioning Perry on in-state tuition and so forth, I didn't get that from his people. Even when I've questioned Santorum about some of his votes that I don't agree with, I don't get that from his people either. It comes from one place. But Romney's people are more underhanded about it. They have an enormous amount of opposition research, these big files, they're putting them out, and really these campaigns get people passionate and excited, and it's going to destroy reputations and careers because you get caught up in this stuff and you become a cheerleader for one of these people. You can be a cheerleader. You can be a cheerleader, but be an honest cheerleader. To say that in this field that Romney's the most conservative, you got to be smoking something. You've got to be smoking something. You can argue he's electable, he's this, you like his looks, his transformation over the last 5 or 6 years is okay, fine. Fine. Say what you want. Argue what you want on his behalf. Oh, but he's not the most conservative in the field. That's pretty pathetic. So they're putting out a lot of the votes. Ann Coulter is, and a number of the others. Look, it's public, so I can mention it, right? That were handed to her because she didn't do the research. Well, he voted for this and he voted for that. Ostensibly all these liberal big government things. I got to thinking to myself, this man was the most conservative senator in half a century in Pennsylvania before Toomey came along, and we'll see how he does over time. He was defeated because he was the most conservative senator in half a century in Pennsylvania. Many of the votes that he's being attacked for by the Romney people are votes that he cast to support George Bush, whose father just endorsed Romney. Isn't that amazing? And when you're a senator, you cast thousands of votes. So you can be cherry-picked left and right. But I want to ask you this question, and I've brought this up before. I bring it full circle. When you watch these guys, and when you think about them being in the Oval Office, who do you think is going to be the most consistent, principled conservative? This is the vote we have, by the way, on the daily temperature poll on marklevinshow.com if you want to participate. Romney, Gingrich, or Santorum? Who do you think? Not somebody's talking points on this vote, on this amendment, on this and that. I'm asking you, when it comes down to massive government spending, when it comes down to having the right inclination about massive government entitlements, when it comes to securing our border and fighting the enemy and making sure we have the strongest military on the face of the earth, that's right, the strongest military on the face of the earth, with the most modern equipment money can buy, with people in the armed services who are well supported and paid properly, so we can kick the crap out of any enemy we need to. Not as warmongers, but as freedom fighters. I'm so sick of this that we should be ashamed of our history. I'm not ashamed of our history. We have a great history. If we were warmongers and imperialists and conquerors, you think those inbreds that run those countries in the Middle East would be running those countries in the Middle East? I don't think so. They wouldn't be speaking German in Germany. They'd be speaking English in Germany. If we were the warmongers and the imperialists. I am so sick of the left and these Paul people putting down my country, putting down our foreign activities, and putting down our military. Yes, that's right. I'm sick to hear with it. Now, back to Romney versus Santorum, where Santorum is supposed to be the big government liberal and Romney the little government conservative. Let me tell you something. When Ronald Reagan was struggling in 1980 in Pennsylvania, one of his very young supporters was Rick Santorum. Where was Mitt Romney? When Ronald Reagan was president of the United States from 1981 to 1989, by the time his presidency was over, we knew he was one of the greatest presidents in American history. And yet 5 years later, when Romney's running against Ted Kennedy, he's trashing Ronald Reagan. At that point, Romney's a full adult, a thinking, mature adult. He just experienced one of the greatest presidencies in American history. He saw with his own two eyes what capitalism can do when a president of the United States unleashes it. He saw with his own two eyes the commander-in-chief who led the defeat of the Soviet Union and won the Cold War, who chased the communists out of Latin America. And Mitt Romney, 5 years later, trashed Ronald Reagan. And I have to be lectured by Karl Rove, who never was a Reaganite, and Ann and others, that he's the big conservative and that Santorum is not, or for that matter, Newt Gingrich is not, or for that matter, Rick Perry is not. Who's fooling whom around here? Who's fooling whom around here? And I'm supposed to worry about this little vote or that little vote. I want somebody in the Oval Office who I know in his heart and in his soul and in his mind is a conservative, confident about it, consistent with it. And if you didn't know by 1994, that Ronald Reagan, that his administration, that the accomplishments over that 8-year period after he took over from Jimmy Carter, wasn't one of the greatest presidents in history, even if you didn't know that, to try and distance yourself from it and try, well, then they tell, well, he was running for governor. Always with the situational ethics, have you noticed? Always with the situational principles. Well, he was running for governor of a blue state. So what? So what? What does that have to do with anything? Still stand on your principles, and you win, and you win or you lose. I don't know. People just get me going when I hear them and I watch their little games. They're sitting at their computers, putting out their little emails and putting stuff on their websites. And don't email me after my show. I don't want to hear it. And you know who I'm talking about.